All right, so welcome to our container security group meeting. Looks like Philippe has the first two items. I don't know if these are just FYIs or if he had more commentary here, but I'll go ahead and read them. So his first one, I tried to search for GitLab network policies and it's not linking to anything in our online docs. We should avoid using Cilium when talking about network policies or network security. I guess he thinks so it shows up. I would just add my comment on that is I don't think it's bad to use Cilium in the docs. I think it's okay for them to know what we're actually using under the hood. But ideally we'll use both so that, so that we can still find it when we go and search for it.
Is this not is this not a relevant result for us? Can you see my screen?
So that would be our, I can. So it looks like that would be our direction page, which is relevant. That's like our roadmap. I'm not seeing like the documentation on how to set it up though.
Right.
So if they're wondering how to set it up, it is the documentation that's missing from the top of the search results. So I'm not really sure. Obviously that's Google's search engine, so we only have so much control over that, but maybe we can put a few more keywords in our documentation.
Yeah, from what I remember about the setup stuff, it's kind of buried into the managed applications area, right? And it's only a few lines, so it's probably a lot to compete with.
So, I mean, on that same note, and I'm guessing that's where that came from, I just did a review with Philippe closing out a task that he had to help architecture a better, approach for customers who don't want to use CI/CD to deploy their application into the cluster, but still want to manage the security of the cluster. And so as part of that, I just created an issue to update our documentation. I think this might get better when we do that because I'm proposing that we actually create a separate page dedicated to how to set that up. I'll drop that link here in the notes document.
Did you think, by any chance, did you think of a better spot for that diagram that he drew? Because he helped me understand the options. It might help other people.
Yeah, so I think that would fit in really well on that new page that I'm proposing. I'm essentially proposing that we create a new page under the cluster submenu dedicated to container security. So we'll have a page for how to set up and use Cilium and a page for how to set up and use, I want to say Falco, container host protection, host security.
Sounds great.
Anyway, that one I have slated tentatively for 13.3, but I'll drop that link in here too, so you can take a look at it. And then Philippe's second comment here, threat monitoring is listed under secure, which is application security in the menus. We should probably clean that up. Let's see. I'm not quite following that comment. If anyone else understands.
I think it's the confusion between the relation between threat insight and the threat monitoring, secure, and defend. Maybe that's the thing that's going on right now.
Yeah, and the docs on the left-hand side, I think under projects is application security. And I think within application security, threat monitoring is. I think it's even, I don't know what clean up means, but.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to clean that up. Maybe we can ask back to Tiago and ask him exactly what he would propose here.
So in Philippe's defense, he did add these as next on the agenda, and I thought he was confused and wanted it on be on here today. We could revisit this next week if he's here.
Okay. Okay, so that being done, let's dive into our final designs for create, edit, and delete policies. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. I was hoping to have Arthur on, but we can go ahead without him. We've been iterating quite a bit. I've updated the prototype that we have, Arthur updated it as well. I synced up with him yesterday just to make some final changes. So I incorporated his most recent feedback here by breaking out port separately. So now you can have, these are essentially the layer, let's see, these are the layer 3 filters, and then the port is the one layer 4 filter that we support. So that way you can have both a layer 3 and a layer 4 within the same rule. So you can do IP address and port at the same time in this new model. Also, notable changes, we took out namespace from here since that's something that is duplicative of the environment. I guess I got confused earlier and thought that environment was separate from namespace, but Arthur explained that's really a 1-to-1 ratio or relationship between environment and namespace. So if they're picking the environment up here, they're basically picking which namespaces it gets applied to. So we don't need to specify that down here as well. And then I think those are the key changes. We got rid of the service option just due to some complexity there, and we want to try to keep this minimal. You know, if we can, we want to fit it in 13.2, even though I think it's going to be a little bit tight. So that's sort of the summary of the changes that I made here. And then Andy, do you want to share your most recent mocks around some of the error states and deleting?
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
And my apologies if I'm diving right into this. I think we've had a number of discussions before this, so I'm kind of assuming that the viewer or the audience here has some context ahead of time. If we need to go back, let me know.
I think that's what we're here for. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm good. If anybody, does anybody need to track back? All right.
No, I'm good. Okay, I'll share my screen here. So we have generally, I guess the flow, if we look at it, is you're, in the policy tab, some conversation going around if we should move this button or just display it only when the policy tab is selected. We move it, maybe we can find a nice place for it. And then going through the flow, I'll update this based on that new direction Sam was showing us. And now the error state. So basically, it's kind of like an older form validation where you're just kind of like highlighting the area and then making a call to it below with just kind of like a list or, yeah, basically an unordered list, because they don't really have enough room to put the validation underneath the field, which is how we do it today in most of the single fields we have. But I don't think it's much cause for alarm. And then,
Andy, forgive my noobness on responsive guidelines in GitLab, but we're not expecting people on mobile to be using there. What's the responsive look like in there?
We want to be aware of it. Same thing that we're kind of seeing in the security dashboard is there's some like undesirable behavior. We really just want to mitigate as much as possible, knowing that primarily we're assuming that people are still using desktop or a larger screen for their main, job or main focus. But that doesn't mean that it needs to look like a Van Gogh painting or something.
Yeah. Picasso.
Yeah, in the prototype that I built, if you make the width small enough, that policy preview will jump down to the bottom. So, it's at least a little bit responsive. I would not worry, we don't need to worry too much about that. It's going to be a huge edge case for people to be writing these policies on their phones.
I figured, yeah. Just wanted to be sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, Andy, as you were.
No, yeah. So, that's fairly straightforward when it comes to like the inline validation we want to support. There's another case that I still need to build out that Sam was mentioning just before this call where we can't parse this information from the YAML. So imagine if someone like created a rule, goes in to edit it, but they've just done some like gnarly YAML things that we can't like make into fields. So we can create like a state around that, which should be fairly lightweight. And then there's just some, minor attention to be paid to this drawer that we have built, and clicking on a, existing policy. And, there's some things you can change. They're fairly straightforward, like the description and kind of disabling or enabling the status. If you do any of those two things, the supply changes button will become active. You can also edit the policy from here, or kind of close and then just ignore any changes you may have done, or get rid of the drawer altogether.
Andy, do you mind if I ask a question right now?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering what would be the difference between apply changes and edit policy?
So if you were to say you wanted to change this just plain text description, that would then be a change you could apply right now, as well as like quickly disabling the policy. But there's some things we probably want to work through. Like if you disable the policy, it's going to disable it across all of its instances, even if it's in different namespaces, right, Sam?
Right. So the policy is going to be applied to one or more namespaces or environments. And if you disable it, then it'll disable it for all of those environments that it was applied to. Same thing if you enable it, it'll enable it across the board for all environments that it was applied to.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really, mainly just to support the quick actions. You can go and edit the policy and do like the heavy lifting there.
And edit is a link back to the page that we were looking at before.
Yeah. And then this is again that policy editor, but if you're looking at an existing policy, the only changes is that we now add a button that says delete policy, which should bring up a confirmation modal that I can provide a mock for if it's necessary. Which, since it's a destructive action, we want to make sure people don't destroy all their policies. And then this is just the first run. So what happens when you land on this page? What does it look like if you haven't done anything?
On the modal, Lindsay, do you think your people will need that? It's pretty standard, but do you need that?
I'm not sure you mean by my people, Tiago.
The people in your team front end.
Well, the people on
what do you mean you people?
Container security team is acting as full stack. So hey, Zamir, do you need that level of detail from a UI perspective?
No, I think this is Arthur and Zamir now.
Yeah.
As long as we have the Andy like write somewhere that we expect to have pop up over there, I think should be fine. There's usage of pop up everywhere for this.
I'll make a note on the design.
Yeah, we have a standard modal component. Probably just need copy. And that pretty much covers it. Is there anything else? We're probably going to be waiting on some copy. I'll bring in, I think Nick is still our tech writer here. So if we want to have copy here, that just needs to be massaged. I think that can happen.
The only thing that I think I mentioned that before is that the parsing that's going to happen between the rule mode and EML mode is going to be based on the fields that we predetermine. We cannot do the parsing against Kubernetes definition of the network policy. Right now, I think in the beginning, it would be lots of work for this.
Right, we're going to only support Cilium network policies with this, which comes back to that error state. They could actually do a lot of things in YAML that will work and be valid policies, but we're not going to support. And so no matter what the reason is, if we have a problem with the YAML that we can't parse it, we'll just display that error state. It'll be the universal fallback. And they can always go to YAML mode to edit it directly.
Awesome.
So here's the big question. I know we still have just a few outstanding design items, a few error states and the final text that's missing, but are we ready to move this to workflow refinement?
It would be, wouldn't it be planning breakdown first?
I think that's sort of what we're going through at this moment.
So come back to the questions in the agenda, and I know it's really just Zamir that's answering them right now.
Yeah.
To move from planning breakdown to refinement, we want to know, are the requirements clear enough to understand the intent of the request? And do we understand the boundaries of the work to be completed? And has the research and solution validation been complete? So those are our criteria to graduate from planning breakdown to refinement.
So the last one is a no, right? Do we expect anything? I think not, right, Tam? If you're proposing to move on, you're not expecting anything big to come at this point.
No, we're not doing a full solution validation on this. We don't always do problem and solution validation. If we did that, doing the problem validation takes like 2 to 3 months, and doing solution validation takes like 2 to 3 months. So if we did that for every single issue, we would never have anything to give to engineering. So we really just evaluate them based off of which ones need it. I think we're planning to move forward with this one and do a solution validation to follow up for the longer term vision for policy management.
Cool. Let Zamir and I have a quick look after this, catch up, and then we'll move to refinement if it's all good. Just to give just to give Arthur a chance as well, in the spirit of asynchronous meetings. But based on Arthur's last comment, it should be okay. But just give me a chance to cross check with everyone.
I know that
sounds good.
Planning breakdown versus refinement, like breaking things into subtasks versus smaller deliverable issues are different. And I look at this and I feel like there's a lot in this large issue. So I'm wondering if there's ways to slice this into deliverable pieces, benefits that we can give to our customer, not necessarily subtasks, like how you would solve the problem. But as you and Zamir and Arthur are thinking about that, that would probably benefit this.
Yeah, so one thing to note as well, if I can just call this out real quick, in the requirements, I intentionally left the requirements very vague because I wanted to have a relatively simple, hard requirements and then a stretch goal for us to go after. So I would view like the minimal requirements are that they are able to create new policies, edit them, and delete them. So even if we just do the YAML mode and don't get the rule mode done, that would meet all of these core requirements. And then that rule mode or the more visual way of editing them, I view that as a little bit more of like, a stretch, that could potentially be broken down into a separate issue or a separate customer deliverable that we follow on later.
Yeah, Zamir, Arthur had some ideas around doing this front end only. So we could probably just check that while we're still in planning breakdown.
Yeah,
so
I wonder if you're getting mixed up with the out of the box policies. Maybe that was this too. I don't know.
Yeah, I was thinking that this one was mainly front end because he did the cycle already in the back end to edit the policies over there. At least to install and remove, I think it's more or less over there on the back end side. So it will be mostly front end. And I like the idea that Sam was able to put the requirements a little bit clean on that. So then we can create follow-up issues if we need to cut a little bit of the scope for now.
Yeah. So Linz, your point is well taken. We'll endeavor to do that.
And this is a great example of our new approach to using epics and design issues. And it looks like you're following all of the right steps to make this an example that we can look at in the future.
No pressure.
We're trying. And actually, I didn't put this on the agenda, but okay. So next up, Thiago, you'll follow up on that and confirm if it's ready for refinement. I didn't put this on the agenda, but I just want to follow up. Last planning breakdown meeting, we covered the active response options for container host security. I think, Zamir, you were really the only one from this group that was synchronous on that call, at least from the backend team. But we felt that was ready to move to refinement. I just want to make sure are we still good to go on that, or do we need to come back and talk about that at all? Because I haven't seen any refinements done on it yet.
For me, I sync up with Alan on Monday, and he showed me what he did. He has like a first version, but he didn't test much on the Sidekick side of things. So yeah, I would have to go through that and probably pick most of the stuff that he did to use for that.
Yeah,
as long as it's I'm just for me, it's a priority thing. As soon as we are all aligned with the priority thing, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, it was also towards the end of last week, and we had Family and Friends Day. I've only really caught this today, so it's coming.
Okay, sounds good. Well, that's all I had for today. Does anyone else have any other items to talk about?
Just how much Andy's porch looks like a nice place to hang out on a sunny day. On a sunny day,
It's very nice. I don't know the Celsius conversion, but it's.
I'm American. What is it in American?
72.
Wow, that's lovely.
Must be boiling
Enjoy
hot.
it.
Be careful. Heat stroke.
Yeah.
Great. All right,
See you,
thanks
everyone.
everyone.